So a little background on me. I'm not from California. I'm from the East Coast, and I grew up in a little resort town called Northeast Harbor, Maine. Actually, Northeast Harbor, Maine, as we would say it there. And what was interesting about that town is it had 600 people in the wintertime, and I was there all year round, and 6,000 people in the summertime. And some of the summer residents were fairly well known. The Rockefeller clan was there, and titans of industry from the East Coast. And I got to watch these people come in, and I thought, wow, these people are from a different world. And I became impressed with the fact that they'd all, most of them were, Kellogg's, the Rockefellers, and on and on and on. They'd started these big businesses, or their parents or their grandparents had started these big businesses. And so I became really entranced with this whole concept of starting companies and getting the heck out of Maine, which was very cold in the winter. So that led me to go out and get at least as far as Cambridge, Massachusetts, and go to MIT. And I did an undergrad there and got a degree in electrical engineering. And from there, I sort of migrated down to Washington, D.C., where I worked for NIH for a while, which was a fun job because I got to travel all around the country and evaluate the use of NIH grant funds in computer or IT projects. And it was really great because if you're an NIH evaluator and you go walk into some research laboratory, they treat you like you're king because you control their money. So, but it was fun. I got to learn about what went on and how all the whole grant process worked. And then I got a little sick of that and I decided to go off on the private sector, and I worked for Booz Allen and Hamilton in the management consulting division in Washington, D.C. And that was interesting because, again, I got to get back into the whole business side and learn about businesses and how they worked and charge them exorbitant rates for consulting and work new MBAs to death, which is what they do pretty much. And then I decided that I would leave that firm and go join a high-tech firm in Washington, D.C. This was in the early 80s, and I decided that, well, I'm going to make a jump and I'm going to get in. I joined as general manager of this firm. And what I didn't do my homework very well because this was a public company. It raised money about a year prior to my joining the firm. And it had about $750,000 left in the bank, and it was burning about $500,000 a month. So when I get in and I looked at all the books, I went, oh. And a lot of the money was going to another company that the senior vice president of engineering owned. I thought, oh, this is not good. And then it turned out, as I learned more, the CEO had a little bit of a drinking problem, and he would sort of disappear for weeks at a time. And so I thought, well, this probably wasn't one of my better decisions to join this company, but maybe there's something I could do about fixing it. So I thought, well, okay, I'm like in my late 20s, early 30s, and I'm thinking, oh, I can change everything. So I'll go in and I'll fire the CEO. So I went in and I got the board there, and I think the CEO was locked up in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York on the floor or something. And I said, he's not at the board meeting. If you want me to stay with the company, make me the CEO. And they said, okay, fine, you're the CEO. Boom. Oh, yeah, that maybe wasn't a good decision either. But I eventually was able to build some contract work for this company. They were doing interactive video disc work, and they were doing training films or training videos that were interactive. And my friends at Booz Allen Hamilton told me about this Postal Service contract, and I booked some work for this company, and it ended up closing a $100 million contract. And I thought, wow, that's great. I just booked $100 million. But what I didn't realize is the CEO that I had kicked out and his buddies had controlling interest in the stock in the company, even though it was a public company. And so they had a proxy battle and kicked me out with an armed guard once I'd booked the business. So I thought, oh, I'm kind of a little disillusioned. This is not really a fun way to get my first taste of being a CEO. So I said, what am I going to do? I'll move to California, which is what I did, and I wrote software. And I've been in California since, and I've started 6 companies out here since 1985. And it's been great. I've also fathered 6 kids, so that's been great also. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the background of the companies, then I'm going to go into just a list of some of the things that I've learned. So, first startup. First startup was a software company I created in 1985, or 1984. And I saw the Macintosh come out, and I thought, hey, I bet you can do this in the PC. I bet you can do Windows in the PC. What I know. So I wrote this base level software package, and it turned out to be the first desktop publishing package for the PC. And my friend Heidi Roizen over at TeamMaker published it, and then we eventually took it over to Software Publishing Corporation, which was around at the time. And they ended up, I put about $100K into it. They ended up buying the package for about $1 million. And I thought, whoa, this took about a year. And I thought, this is great. You just kind of do this, and you're in California, and you sell things, and you make $1 million. How easy could that be? So I thought, 1,000% ROI. I'll do another company. So I started a company called Emerald City Software. And I thought, well, I did PC software, let's do Mac software. And I wrote some of it myself, but I realized I didn't have the expertise in the Macintosh to do that. So we hired some programmers, and we got some money. And we raised about $1 million. And we raised it at $1 million pre-money. And I didn't know anything about establishing valuations for companies and stock and preferential preferred and all this stuff that you get into when you start doing these kind of VC-backed companies. But I did know I trusted people, and a guy named Peter Ziebelman, who now works for 21st Century Internet, funded the company. He was with another firm at the time, and he had a $1 million pre-money valuation. He put $1 million in, and we sold the company to Adobe for $12 million about 9 months later. And I thought, well, this is really great. And I had a great opportunity to go work for Adobe and work for John Warnock, and served as their director of engineering at that time for applications products. And I got the opportunity to put the C team together that developed Acrobat and PDF, and we were doing Photoshop and Illustrator, and it was awesome. But after about 6 months, I got really bored because I wasn't starting companies and taking risks. So I thanked John, but I said, I've got to go out and start another company. And Steve Jobs at the time was singing the praises of Next, and I thought, Next computers, oh yeah, it's going to be like Apple, it's going to be incredible. And he said, yeah, Randy, what you have to do is you have to start a software company that sells application products for the Next platform. So I started a company called AppSoft. We went out and we bought software, we developed software, and we had a spreadsheet, we had a word processor, we had a page layout program, we had an image processing program, we had a couple of other programs for a full suite of products. We were about ready to launch just when Steve said, hey, we're not producing hardware anymore. Well, I got Sequoia, Mike Moritz, as a matter of fact, to put $2 million into this company, and it crashed and burned. I thought, oh, this isn't so fun. Will Mike ever speak to me again? And it turned out he did speak to me again. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But I learned something. That was kind of first learning, that when you launch a company that's dependent on another company, you better be sure that company's going to be successful, because you won't be successful if they aren't. So then I went on and I started a company after kind of licking my wounds with AppSoft, because I had to fire everybody about a week before Christmas with no severance. And so I moved all the furniture and stuff into my garage. And I'm kind of sitting there kind of depressed because you think, oh, these people are out of work and it's terrible. And then so I got on the internet and I started selling off some of the assets on the internet, and I thought, oh wow, the internet is selling stuff. This is like 1993. This could be good. I bet you could sell stuff on the internet. So Mosaic hadn't come around, the first browser hadn't come around just yet, but in the fall of that year it had. And we decided, hey, I got with a friend of mine, Bill Rawlinson, and we decided, let's start a company and we'll sell stuff on the internet. What a great idea. There's hundreds of thousands, there's millions of people out there. We can sell stuff on the internet. So we went around telling everybody, we want to sell stuff on the internet. And they went, you're insane. You're crazy. Why would anybody on the internet buy stuff? In fact, we went down to Ingram Micro and we said, we want to open a computer software store on the internet. And they went, no, we don't want to do that. So we went, okay, well, we'll go back and visit them again. So we went back and visited them again and said, we want to open a computer software store. And they said, okay. And so we said, give us your list, and we're going to do a mail order company, and we'll send you the orders that you have to ship to people. And they said, okay. So then we quickly put together web pages with all this software that when we brought up in January of 1994, we brought up the first e-tailer on the web, and we started selling software. And Ingram Micro still thought we were running a catalog. They didn't have any idea we were selling on the internet. But that started to go crazy. And after about 4 months, we went to the first Internet World in San Jose. And the Home Shopping Network approached us and said, hey, you know what? We were thinking of doing something like this. Why don't we just buy you guys? And we went, 4 months, we put hardly any money in. Okay. And they said, we'll buy you, and how much do you want? And we thought, I don't have any idea. 5 million? And they said, okay, we'll write a check. We write bigger checks than that every day. I went, oh, did I say 5 million? I meant 50 million. 50 million. That was already done. And Home Shopping Network bought us, and Barry later sold the assets of the company or traded them for $500 million. So I thought, well, kind of left a little money on the table there. But the thing that happened, as a result of that was that we ended up being branded as the first sort of M&A activity in the internet space, which actually Jerry Yang and David Filo came to me and said, hey, could you get us some money? And I thought, okay. And said, well, do you have any VCs you trust? And I said, hey, I lost $2 million in Mike Rintz's money. He still talks to me. Let's go talk to Mike. So I took him over to Mike, and the rest is kind of history. I sat on the board for the first year, and it was a real fun time at Yahoo. And Mike thanked me a lot. He just said he was unable to make money off me personally, but the referrals were very, very good. So that worked out well. And I went on to start a company called Navitel, which was a Windows software company, basically Windows CE telephony, which I sold to Spyglass. It had a pre-money valuation. Microsoft invested in it. It had a pre-money valuation of about $5 million. And we raised about $6 million. Ended up selling it. It's hard to say what we sold it for because we sold it at the peak, but it was about a $200 million sale. So a pretty good ROI. And then finally, the company that I started just recently called AuctionDrop, which was started in 2002. It's basically eBay-assisted selling. If you want to sell something on eBay and you don't want to list it yourself, you drop it off. Right now, you drop it off at any one of 3,600 UPS stores, and they'll ship it to our hub, and we process it, put it up on eBay, and do all the work and send the seller a check. Exit? Who knows? You never know. We have some ideas on where we want to exit, and that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about when you're thinking about companies. You kind of have to think them through. You know, you don't want to start a company that no one's going to ever want to buy, or that's not going to build to a point where you can do an IPO. Well, our pre-money valuation in the last round was $16 million. We raised about $16 million.